In October 2019, a forest ranger found a camcorder buried 3 feet underground in the Adirondack Mountains. When they played the footage, they discovered something that made them seal the case file immediately. What they saw shouldn't have been possible. Before we continue, subscribe, like, drop a comment, and turn on notifications, because I drop interesting stories like this always. The Adirondack Mountains, upstate New York, October 2019. 6 million acres of wilderness, endless forest, lakes so deep they've never been fully mapped, and silence. The kind of silence that makes you understand why people used to fear the woods. This is where 5 college students went missing for 11 days. When they returned, they were different, changed. Their story didn't make sense. The evidence didn't match their timeline. And the footage on that camcorder revealed something that law enforcement, park services, and psychological professionals have been trying to explain ever since. But some things don't have explanations. Some things just are. Olivia Chen was 21 years old, psychology major at Cornell University, ambitious, driven. She'd been planning this camping trip since freshman year. One last adventure before senior year consumed her life with thesis papers and graduate school applications. Her boyfriend, Tyler Morrison, was the outdoorsman. Grew up hunting and fishing in rural Pennsylvania. He knew survival skills, how to read terrain, how to respect the wilderness. He'd camped in the Adirondacks dozens of times, knew the trails, knew which areas to avoid. Then there was Rachel Kim, Olivia's roommate, pre-med, brilliant but anxious. She didn't want to go initially, didn't like bugs, didn't like being away from cell service. But Olivia convinced her, told her it would be therapeutic, a break from the pressure. Marcus DeLuca rounded out the group. Tyler's best friend since high school, engineering major. Practical, logical. The kind of person who always had a solution, always had a plan. He brought GPS devices, emergency beacons, weather monitoring equipment. He wasn't taking chances. And finally, there was Zoe Hartley. She transferred to Cornell that semester. Quiet, kept to herself mostly. But when Olivia mentioned the trip in their shared chemistry class, Zoe asked if she could join, said she needed to get away, needed to clear her head. Something about her intensity made Olivia say yes. They left on October 11th, Friday afternoon. The plan was simple: hike into a remote area of the park, set up base camp near Summit Lake, spend the weekend camping, and return Monday morning. 4 days, nothing complicated. They filed their route plan with the Park Service, told their families where they'd be, did everything right. But they didn't come back Monday, or Tuesday, or Wednesday. On Thursday, October 17th, search and rescue was deployed. Helicopters, tracking dogs, volunteers. They found the students' cars at the trailhead, found their initial campsite, but no sign of the students themselves. The search continued for 6 days, and then, on October 22nd, all 5 walked out of the forest, dehydrated, exhausted, confused. They claimed they'd only been gone for 2 days. According to the footage later recovered from the camcorder, the first night started normally. And they'd hiked 7 miles into the wilderness, set up camp near Summit Lake just as planned. The weather was perfect. Clear sky, temperature in the low 50s, a gentle breeze carrying the smell of pine and cold water. Tyler built a fire while Marcus set up tents. Rachel organized supplies. Olivia documented everything on her phone, talking about how beautiful it all was, how this was exactly what they needed. Zoe sat slightly apart from the group, watching, always watching. In the early footage, you can see her staring at the tree line. Not at anything specific, just staring. "You okay?" Olivia's voice on the recording. Zoe turned, smiled. "Yeah, just taking it all in. It's been a while since I've been anywhere this remote. Where'd you go camping before?" "Wyoming, with my family. Before..." She trailed off, didn't finish. Olivia didn't push. They barely knew each other. They cooked dinner over the fire, freeze-dried meals that tasted better than they should have, shared stories, laughed. Tyler and Marcus joked about their high school football days. Rachel talked about her interview at Johns Hopkins. Olivia tried to get Zoe to open up more, but she remained reserved, polite but distant. As darkness settled completely, the forest changed. The sounds shifted. Daytime birds went quiet. Night creatures began their routines. Owls, the rustle of small animals, the occasional distant howl of coyotes. "I love this," Marcus said. No phones, no internet, just us and nature. Your GPS is still technology, Rachel pointed out. Emergency technology. Doesn't count. They'd brought one camcorder, an old model Tyler's dad had given him. Nostalgic, retro. Sure, Tyler said it felt more authentic than recording on phones. He set it up on a tripod, pointing at the fire. Let it run. Captured them, talking and laughing as the flames danced. Around midnight, Rachel noticed something odd. Does the fire sound weird to you? Tyler looked up from poking the embers. What do you mean? Listen, it's crackling, but the rhythm is, I don't know, regular, like a pattern. They listened. At first, it sounded like any fire, random pops and hisses. But the longer you paid attention, the more you could hear it. A rhythm, almost like Morse code. Pop, pop, hiss, silence. Pop, pop, hiss. Fires don't have rhythm, Marcus said. It's just confirmation bias. You're looking for a pattern, so you're hearing one. Maybe, Rachel said, but she moved closer to Tyler. Zoe stood abruptly. Anyway, I'm going to get more water from the lake. You want company? Olivia asked. I'm fine, just need a minute. She grabbed a flashlight and water bottles, walked toward the lake. The camcorder caught her silhouette disappearing into darkness. She was gone for 17 minutes. When she returned, something had shifted in her demeanor. She sat down, didn't speak. Her hands were shaking slightly. Zoe, Olivia leaned forward. What happened? Nothing. I just thought I saw something in the water. What kind of something? A reflection, but wrong. Like it wasn't reflecting what was actually there. Like it was showing something else, somewhere else. Tyler and Marcus exchanged glances. The kind of glances that said, great, the new girl is freaking out. But Olivia took it seriously. What did you see in the reflection? A campfire, like ours. But there were more people around it, maybe 10 or 12, and they were all staring at one person in the center. I couldn't see who, but they were all just staring, not moving, not talking, just staring. It was probably just your own reflection, Marcus said, mixed with the stars. Water does weird things with light. Yeah, Zoe said softly, probably. But she kept glancing back toward the lake. And in the camcorder footage, if you watch carefully, you can see something in the background, just beyond the reach of the firelight. A shape, tall, motionless, standing between two trees. It's only visible for 3 seconds. Then it's gone. They woke to fog, thick, unnatural. The kind of fog that shouldn't exist in mid-October in the mountains. It reduced visibility to maybe 15 feet. Everything beyond that was white nothingness. This wasn't in the forecast, Marcus said, checking his weather monitor. It's showing clear skies, 72 degrees, but it's maybe 50 out here. And this fog, microclimates, Tyler said. Lakes create weird weather patterns. It'll burn off. But it didn't. By noon, the fog was denser. The temperature had dropped to the mid-40s. And something else was wrong. The sounds were gone. No birds, no insects, no wind. The forest was completely silent except for their voices and footsteps. This is bizarre, Rachel said. Where did all the animals go? They decided to explore anyway, hiked around the lake. Tyler led with his compass and GPS. Marcus verified the route with his backup devices. They were taking no chances. But after an hour of hiking, they found themselves back at their campsite. That's impossible, Marcus said. We walked in a straight line away from camp. We should be a mile away at least. Tyler checked his compass. The needle was spinning, slowly, continuously, never settling on north. Okay, that's not normal. Marcus pulled out his GPS. The screen showed their location, but it kept flickering, jumping. 1 second they were at Summit Lake. The next, the device showed them 200 miles away. Then back, then somewhere else entirely. Something's interfering with the satellites, Marcus said. Maybe solar activity, or... He didn't finish, because they all knew there was no or that made sense. Olivia tried her phone. No service, which was expected. But something else was odd. The clock was wrong. It showed 3:47 p.m. But Tyler's watch showed 1:23 p.m. Rachel's showed 2:15 p.m. Marcus's showed 4:02 p.m. Did we all forget to set our watches? Rachel asked. They checked the camcorder. Its timestamp showed October 13th, but it was October 12th. They'd only been there one night. Battery must be dying, Tyler said, making the clock glitch. But the battery indicator showed full charge. Zoe had been quiet all morning. Now she spoke. We should leave. What? Tyler turned to her. We should pack up and leave right now. Something is wrong with this place. The fog, the silence, the equipment malfunctions. We should go. We're fine, Tyler said. Just some weird atmospheric conditions. It'll pass. What if it doesn't? Then we leave tomorrow. But we came all this way. Let's at least stay one more night. It was the wrong decision. And they all knew it was the wrong decision. But they stayed anyway. The fog lifted just before sunset. As quickly as it had appeared, it vanished. The forest sounds returned. Birds, insects. Everything normal again. They built another fire. Tried to relax. Tried to pretend the day hadn't been deeply unsettling. Tyler got the camcorder running again, positioned it to capture the group. For the record, he said to the camera, we experienced some weird technical difficulties today, but everything's fine now. The Adirondacks just keeping us on our toes. He was trying to sound confident. It didn't work. As darkness fell, Rachel started making dinner. Marcus checked his equipment obsessively. Olivia wrote in her journal. Zoe stared at the lake again. I'm going down there, Zoe announced. To the lake? Olivia looked up. Mana, why? I need to see something. I'll come with you. This time Olivia went. They took flashlights and walked to the water's edge. The camcorder captured their voices faintly in the distance. Captured Tyler and Marcus talking by the fire. Captured Rachel stirring a pot of soup. And then it captured something else. A light in the forest, moving parallel to the camp. Not a flashlight. Bigger, diffused, like a lantern. But there was no one else out there. The park rangers had confirmed they were the only registered campers in this section. Marcus saw it first. Tyler, do you see that? Tyler turned, stared. Yeah, what the hell is that? The light moved slowly, steadily. It wove between trees, sometimes visible, sometimes obscured, but always moving in the same direction, circling the camp. Should we check it out? Marcus asked. No, Tyler said immediately. No, we should not check out the mysterious light in the woods. That's how people die in horror movies. This isn't a movie. Exactly, which means there's a real explanation. Probably hikers with a lantern. Park Service said we're alone out here. They could be wrong, or illegal campers. Either way, not our problem. The light continued its circuit, and then as it passed behind a thick cluster of trees, they heard something. Singing, faint, distant, but definitely singing. Multiple voices, harmony. The melody was old, familiar, like a folk song or a hymn, but they couldn't make out the words. Tyler grabbed the camcorder, pointed it toward the sound, zoomed in as far as the lens would go. The light was clearer now, and around it, barely visible, here were shapes, human shapes, moving in a circle, dancing maybe, or performing some kind of ritual. What the fuck, Marcus whispered. The singing grew louder, the shapes more distinct. Tyler counted them, 8, maybe 9, moving in perfect synchronization. And then Olivia and Zoe came running back from the lake. There are people out there, Olivia gasped, in the water, standing in the water, just standing there, not moving. What? Tyler spun the camera toward the lake. Through the lens in the enhanced night vision mode, they could see them. 5 figures, standing waist deep in Summit Lake, motionless, facing the shore, facing the camp. This is insane, Rachel said. We need to leave right now. It's dark, Tyler said. We'd get lost, die of exposure. We stay here, together, keep the fire going. I wait for dawn. And if they come closer, then we use the emergency beacon. Call for help. Marcus was already pulling out the beacon, but when he activated it, nothing happened. The light should have flashed red, should have started transmitting their coordinates to rescue services. It stayed dark, dead. Brand new batteries, Marcus said. I checked them yesterday. This should work. But it didn't. They were alone, cut off, and surrounded by people who shouldn't exist. The singing continued. The figures in the lake remained motionless. The light in the forest kept circling. And then Zoe said something that changed everything. They're not people. They're us. Everyone turned to her. What are you talking about? Olivia asked. Look closely at the ones in the water. Really look. Tyler pointed the camera at the lake again, zoomed in further. The footage shows it clearly. The 5 figures standing in the water. Their faces are obscured by distance and darkness, but their builds, their postures, their silhouettes, they match perfectly. The 5 students at the camp, mirrored by 5 figures in the lake. "That's not possible, Marcus said. "It's a reflection," Rachel offered. "Somehow, the water's reflecting us. We're not standing in the water. We're 50 feet away. Reflections don't work like that." The singing stopped. The silence that followed was absolute. The light in the forest went dark, and the figures in the water began walking toward shore. The camcorder footage becomes chaotic here. Shaky, voices overlapping. Fear. "Run!" someone shouts. Tyler maybe, or Marcus. And they scramble, grabbing essentials, abandoning the tents, the fire, most of their supplies, just running into the forest, away from the lake, away from whatever was coming. The camera captures flashes, trees, darkness, someone falling, getting up, running again. Tyler's voice, "Stay together, do not separate." But in the dark, in the panic, it's impossible. They spread out, calling to each other, trying to regroup, and then the camera drops, hits the ground. The lens cracks but keeps recording. From this angle, lying on the forest floor, it captures something extraordinary. The fog returns, instantly, 1 second clear, the next white and impenetrable. And in the fog, shapes move. Lots of shapes, moving between trees, moving toward the camera, toward Tyler who dropped it. His voice is close. No, stay away. Stay." The footage cuts out. When it resumes, the timestamp shows October 18th. 6 days later, the camera is in a different location, underground, buried, but somehow still recording. The lens is cracked, the image is distorted, but you can see dirt, roots, darkness, and you can hear sounds, muffled, distant, voices maybe, or wind, or something else entirely. The battery should have died within hours, but the camera recorded for 4 more days. Underground. Impossible. But there it is. Hours and hours of footage of nothing but dirt and darkness and those sounds. Until October 22nd, when a park ranger's shovel breaks through the soil and light floods the lens. Search and rescue found them on October 22nd. All 5 students, together, sitting in a clearing 3 miles from their original campsite. Unharmed physically, but changed. Sorna, they were disoriented, confused about the date, insisted they'd only been camping for 2 nights, couldn't explain the 11-day gap, couldn't remember where they'd been or what they'd done. Medical examinations showed signs of exposure, dehydration, minor malnutrition, consistent with being outdoors for several days, but not 11 days. Their condition suggested maybe 3 or 4 days maximum. Psychological evaluations were inconclusive. No signs of psychotic breaks, no evidence of drug use, no shared delusion. They genuinely believed they'd only been gone since October 11th, that it was currently October 13th. When confronted with the actual date, with the news coverage of their disappearance, with their frantic families, they couldn't process it. The timeline didn't match their experience of events. A Park Service investigator searched the area thoroughly, found their abandoned campsite, found the tents, the gear, everything exactly as they'd left it, except covered in 11 days of weather and debris, pine needles, leaves, signs of animal activity, and they found the camcorder, buried 3 feet underground in a location 2 miles from the campsite. The dirt above it showed no signs of recent disturbance. It was as if the camera had been there for years, decades even, but the footage was time-stamped to their trip. The investigators watched it, watched the first night, the second day, the panic, the disappearance. They watched the 6 days of underground footage, enhanced the audio, tried to identify the sounds, and they heard something that made them classify the entire case. Voices in the underground footage. Distant, distorted, but definitely voices, speaking in a language no one could identify. A rhythm and cadence that didn't match any known linguistic pattern. And beneath those voices, another sound. Regular, rhythmic, like a heartbeat, but too slow. 1 beat every 3 seconds, consistent for hours, days. The students were separated, interviewed individually, asked to recount their experiences. Their stories matched perfectly. Too perfectly. Same details, same timeline, same confusion about the missing days. Olivia described the figures in the lake, the feeling of being watched, the certainty that they needed to run. Tyler remembered dropping the camera, the fog, shapes moving toward him, then nothing, then waking up in the clearing with everyone else, daylight, confused. Rachel talked about the singing, how it wasn't in English, wasn't in any language, but somehow felt familiar, like something she'd heard before she was born. Marcus focused on the equipment failures, the impossible readings, the compass spinning, the GPS showing contradictory locations. He'd built those devices himself, knew they were functioning properly. The failures couldn't be explained by solar activity or magnetic anomalies. Zoe was the most disturbing interview. She sat calmly, answered questions directly, and then she said something the interviewer would never forget. "We didn't lose 11 days, we gained them. We were supposed to die there. All of us. That's what happens in that place. People go in, they don't come out, but we did. Something let us go. Or maybe we slipped through somehow. I don't know, but those 11 days weren't missing. We lived them. Yes, we just lived them somewhere else, in some version of the forest that exists parallel to this one. And when we came back, time had moved differently here than it did there." "That's not possible," the interviewer said. "Then explain the footage. Explain how a camera buried underground recorded for 6 days on a 2-hour battery. Explain the voices speaking a language that doesn't exist. Explain how 5 people lost 11 days, but only aged 3. The interviewer had no answers. None of them did. The camcorder was analyzed by forensic specialists. The footage authenticated. No signs of tampering. No evidence of digital manipulation. What was on that tape happened. The burial site was excavated. Soil samples taken. Age tested. The disturbed earth showed signs of being in that configuration for at least 18 months. But the camera had been purchased 3 weeks before the trip. The audio from the underground footage was sent to linguistics experts, cryptographers. No one could identify the language. The rhythm suggested communication, but the structure was unlike anything in any database. One researcher noted that the phonemes, the basic sound units, appeared to be mathematical. Fibonacci sequences embedded in syllable patterns, golden ratios in the spacing of words, as if the language itself was expressing fundamental universal constants. Another researcher went further, suggested the sounds weren't language at all, but rather the ambient noise of reality, the background hum of existence itself, usually filtered out by human perception, but somehow captured by the camera in that place. The heartbeat sound was analyzed separately. Seismologists noted it matched the frequency of deep earth resonance, the kind of vibration created by tectonic plates settling, but amplified, regular, as if something large was breathing deep underground. 2 months after their recovery, Olivia received a package at her dorm. No return address. Postmarked from Lake Placid, the nearest town to the Adirondacks. Inside was a photograph. It showed 5 people around a campfire. At night, the image was old, faded, dated in the corner, July 1987. The 5 people in the photograph were Olivia, Tyler, Rachel, Marcus, and Zoe. Exact likenesses, same faces, same builds, same clothing they'd worn on their trip, but from 32 years before they were born. Olivia called the others. They all received the same photograph, same date, same impossible image. Tyler tried to rationalize it. Ancestors maybe, people who happened to look like them. Coincidence, but the clothing was identical. The gear visible in the background matched their equipment exactly, down to a patch on Marcus's jacket that his mother had sewn on the week before the trip. Zoe wasn't surprised. "Time doesn't work the way we think it does," she said. "Not there, not in that place. It's all happening simultaneously, past, present, future. We weren't just in the forest, we were in every version of that forest that has ever existed or will exist. And something there has been waiting, watching, pulling people in, for decades, maybe centuries." Rachel started having dreams. Every night, the same dream. She's standing in Summit Lake, water up to her waist, facing the shore, unable to move, unable to speak, just watching, waiting, and on the shore, for around a campfire, she sees herself, sees all of them, laughing, talking, unaware. She wakes before the figures in the water start moving, always wakes before that part. Marcus became obsessed with the mathematics, filled notebooks with equations, trying to model a space where time could loop, where causality could break down, where effect could precede cause. His professors were concerned. His work became brilliant but unhinged. Theoretical physics pushed to impossible conclusions. He proposed a space where probability collapsed differently, where multiple timelines could coexist, intersect, where you could meet yourself, past, present, future, all at once. His thesis was rejected, too speculative, too far from accepted science. He didn't care. He knew he was right. Tyler stopped going outdoors. The student who loved camping, hiking, nature, he couldn't stand to be in the woods anymore. Even the small grove on campus made him anxious. He'd see movement in his peripheral vision, shapes between trees, lights that shouldn't be there. His therapist diagnosed PTSD, prescribed medication. It didn't help, because what he was seeing was real. 1 year after the incident, in October 2020, Zoe disappeared again. Just walked away from campus one afternoon. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't pack anything. Just left. Campus police found her car parked at the same trailhead where they'd started their trip. Keys in the ignition, door open. Zoe gone. Search and rescue was deployed immediately. Given the history, they took no chances. Helicopters, thermal imaging, dogs, teams of experienced trackers. They found her 3 days later, standing in Summit Lake, water to her waist. Motionless, staring at the shore. When they pulled her out, she was hypothermic, unresponsive, but alive. In the hospital, she eventually spoke. "I had to go back," she said. "I had to understand, and now I do." Understand what? Olivia was there, had driven 5 hours when she heard. What happened to us? What that place is? Why we were chosen? Tell me. Zoe's eyes focused on something far away. There are thin places, places where the barrier between realities is weak, where different timelines can bleed through. Most people never find them, never notice them, but some people are drawn to them. People who are at crossroads, people facing decisions that will fundamentally change who they become. The place finds them, shows them. Shows them what? Possibilities, other versions. What happens if you choose one path versus another? We were all at crossroads, Olivia. You were deciding whether to continue with Tyler or break up. Rachel was deciding whether to pursue medicine or follow her real passion for music. Marcus was choosing between graduate school and accepting that job offer in Seattle. Tyler was choosing whether to propose to you or let the relationship end naturally. And you? I was deciding whether to keep living or not. Silence. The thin place showed us what happens with each choice. We lived out possibilities, experienced futures. That's where the 11 days went. We lived them, multiple timelines, multiple versions. And when we came back, we brought pieces of those experiences with us. That's insane, is it? You broke up with Tyler 2 weeks after we got back. However, you said you couldn't explain why. You just knew it was wrong, that you needed different things. How did you know that, Olivia? You'd been together for 3 years. What changed? Olivia couldn't answer, because Zoe was right. She had known, with absolute certainty, the kind of knowledge that comes from experience, not reasoning. Rachel quit pre-med, Zoe continued, switched to music composition. Marcus turned down MIT, took the job. Tyler proposed to someone else 6 months later, someone he'd met once at a party. Married her 4 months after that, like he was making up for lost time, following a script he'd already lived. And you? I chose to keep living. The place showed me both paths, showed me what happens if I give up, and what happens if I keep going. I saw futures. Olivia, beautiful futures, hard futures. But futures worth experiencing. So I chose. Why did you go back then? To thank it, the forest, the thin place. Whatever consciousness or force exists there, it could have kept us, could have trapped us like it trapped others. But it let us go. Let us return with the knowledge we needed. I wanted to acknowledge that gift. Olivia wanted to argue, wanted to insist this was all trauma and delusion and psychological breaks. But she couldn't, because she'd felt it too. That knowledge, that certainty about her path that came from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. The people in the lake, Olivia said, the ones who looked like us, were those other versions, other choices, other timelines where we made different decisions, all existing simultaneously in that space. The thin place holds all possibilities until you choose, and then the other paths collapse, fade, but they're still there, always there, waiting in the water. The investigation was never officially closed. Too many unanswered questions, too much evidence that contradicted standard explanations. The camcorder footage was sealed, classified. Officially, it was lost during the investigation. Unofficially, it exists in a federal database of unexplained phenomena, along with hundreds of other cases. Other thin places, other people who lost time and came back changed. The students were asked to sign NDAs, not to discuss the specifics of their experience, not to share the photographs, not to speculate publicly about what happened. They all signed. What else could they do? But they stayed in touch, all 5 of them, bound by something deeper than friendship. Each bound by the knowledge that reality is stranger and more malleable than anyone admits. That time is not linear. That consciousness can split and merge and exist in multiple states simultaneously. Rachel's music became haunting, complex. Critics said it sounded like nothing else, like she was channeling something from another plane of existence. She never told them they were right. Marcus's work in theoretical physics pushed boundaries. He published papers on quantum consciousness, on the observer effect scaled to human perception, on the possibility that reality itself is participatory, that we don't just observe the universe, we create it through our choices. Tyler remained haunted. His new marriage was happy. He had 2 kids, a good job, normal suburban life. But sometimes, late at night, he'd wake up and swear he could hear singing. That old melody from the forest, and he'd go to the window and look out at the trees in his backyard. And sometimes he'd see a light, moving, circling, and he'd close the curtains and go back to bed and never mention it. Olivia became a therapist, specialized in trauma, in dissociation, in helping people integrate experiences that don't fit into normal frameworks. She never told her patients about her own experience, but she recognized it in them sometimes. That look, that certainty, that knowledge of something that shouldn't be known. And Zoe? Zoe visits Summit Lake every year. On the anniversary, October 11th, she hikes in alone, sets up camp, lights a fire, and waits. Sometimes she sees the figures in the water. Sometimes she hears the singing. Sometimes the fog rolls in and the forest goes silent and time becomes fluid. Woody, but she's not afraid anymore. She understands. The thin place isn't malevolent. It's not trying to trap people or harm them. It's offering something precious and terrible. Clarity, the ability to see your paths, to experience your possibilities, to choose with full knowledge of the consequences. Most people can't handle that. Most people break under the weight of infinite possibility. They get lost in the versions, trapped between choices, unable to commit to a single timeline. But some people, a few, they take the gift. They see, they choose, they live with the knowledge of roads not taken, and they're forever changed. The forest ranger who found the camcorder in 2019 retired in 2023. But before he left the service, he filed one final report. In it, he documented 17 other cases of missing time in the Adirondacks over the past 40 years. 17 groups of people who disappeared for days or weeks, who returned changed, who couldn't explain what happened. He noted patterns. All the missing individuals were at transitional points in their lives: graduating, getting married, changing careers, losing loved ones, facing major decisions. He mapped the locations, found they all clustered around specific sites. Thin places, he called them, borrowing Zoe's term from her interview. Places where the barrier between possibilities becomes permeable, where consciousness can slip between timelines, where people can glimpse their other lives, their other selves, their other choices. He recommended further investigation, suggested scientific study, proposed careful documentation. His report was filed, acknowledged, and quietly buried, because some knowledge isn't meant to be public. Some places aren't meant to be understood. Some mysteries serve humanity better as mysteries. The thin places remain, waiting, offering their terrible gift to those who stumble upon them, who need them, who are ready for the burden of choice made with full knowledge. Most people will never find them. Most people don't need to. They'll drift through their lives, making choices based on instinct and circumstance and limited information. And that's okay. That's enough. But for some people, the seekers, the questioners, the ones standing at crossroads paralyzed by possibility, the thin places are there, have always been there, will always be there, waiting in the forest, in the mountains, in the places where time moves differently and reality bends, waiting to show you who you could be, who you might become, who you choose to be. All you have to do is light a campfire and wait for